we're continuing our conversation with the candidates here on AM Quincy. We welcome to the program next candidate for Ward 6 City Council. Jim Coffey has stopped on by. Nice to meet you, Jim. Good to see you again, actually.
It's been good to see you again, too, Joe. It's been a while.
It's been a while. You were involved.
And you haven't changed a bit.
I don't know about that. You're very actively involved with the Beechwood Knoll School, right, years ago.
That's right. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. Very difficult, but
Sure.
it was fun. And raising the funds for the school that goes into helping the teachers defray their cost for items in the classroom, but also much needed programs, field trips, and so forth. So. I thank you for allowing me to come on back then and talk about that program.
Yeah, we're happy to do it, and we'll do it again too in the future with the current organizers of the festival.
Right. Yeah, I'm no longer involved in the Beechwood Knoll or Central or North Quincy.
All your kids are grown up now.
Yeah, just the one. She's at Quinnipiac University studying nursing. So
very good. So here you are. You're running for city council.
Yes.
First time for elective office.
It is.
It is. Okay.
It is. Yeah.
Why?
So a little bit about why I decided to run. I've been thinking about this now for a couple of years. I was working in the corporate world, and myself and my whole Northeast area got all laid off. And so I continued to try to find another role in corporate America. Yeah. AI software just kept on saying, nope, he graduated from North Quincy High School in X year. He's too old.
Is that right?
So then I said, well, I've been always looking at the city council in my ward and, what's going on with it and information that's not coming out. And I said, you know what, I can make a change to that. I can change the current Ward 6 to make it so that it's for everyone, not just a few, and communicate with people. There's 3 pillars and reason why I'm running, and I got a lot of those developed from talking to people for the last year and a half almost. And they say that there's no communications. So that is something that I can change.
Okay.
Transparency. You're going to see me, hear me, which is not hard to do with my Irish whisper. And then the third one is accountability. And those are the things that people have been saying to me and that I've been building into my campaign because they mean something. They mean something because they come from the people and the residents of Ward 6.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your history here in Quincy, if you can, Jim.
So grew up in Quincy, went to the public schools here in Quincy, graduated from North Quincy High School. Then I went on to a 25-year night school program at ENC.
Oh, okay.
And thanks to my employer, Verizon, at the time, that was a very successful program. I got my degree in business administration, and then I went right into the workplace. I've been in sales for quite a few years.
Okay.
Did very, very well in sales. I like to think that the reason I did so well is not just my personality and my knowledge of the product and services, but because when I ask a question, I listen. And that's the type of approach I'm taking to the ward is I want people to reach out to me and ask questions. And Joe, the reason that is so important is because you don't learn until you listen. You can talk all day long, but you're not going to learn anything because the other people aren't speaking to you.
So what are folks in Ward 6 saying, Jim? What's on top of their minds?
It's strange that I use the word, especially on my website, Jim Coffey 4, the number 4, WARD, and the number 6.com. I use the word change. And a lot of the people that I'm door knocking and having conversations, a lot of them invite me into their home. They just met me at the doorstep. And after a brief moment of talking, come on in, let's sit down, can I get you a water? And then we have this 10, 15-minute conversation about what's on your mind, what's bothering you, Mr. Resident and Miss Resident. And they tell me, and they say, we need to change. And so, I'm confident what I'm saying on the trail is a representation of what I'm hearing from the people that I'm speaking to.
So, but what are they saying? Are they worried about traffic? Are they worried about parking, development, taxes?
They're worried about all of the above.
Okay.
Speeding in the streets, some streets, the traffic problems, the development in the city. Taxes are a real big thing. I've run into a number of seniors and elderly residents that say to me, I can't afford a $1,000 increase in my property tax. I don't know what I'm going to do because they're living on a fixed income.
Sure.
So I did some research and I decided that I think there's a way I can come up with a tax plan for the elderly. It will be a means-tested approach, meaning that you'll have to own your home, maybe be in the home for 10 or 15 years, be on a fixed income, be the sole breadwinner in the home, and things like that. And then what we'll do is when you check off all those boxes, much like if you're applying for various aid, Mass Health or Medicare, once you check off that, then they put you into a box where you can get certain benefits. Well, that will be similar. You'll be able to then hopefully get a discount off your property tax anywhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 to maybe $2,000.
Okay.
Currently, there is a program, but at max, it's only $500.
I see.
And that doesn't do anything for the taxpayers.
Sure.
And I got a lot of this idea from looking at the city of Boston and how they take care of the elderly. And they have a program similar to what I want to put in place that actually does just that. It rewards the elderly for owning a home on a fixed income, so forth, tax discounts off their property tax of $1,000 to $2,000 a year. I think it's time we start to take care of the seniors and elderly in our city. They've been here a lot longer than most of us. They've raised their family. They've been in the home for 60 years. They haven't really done much to the house in terms of upkeep other than maybe a new refrigerator, a new stove, but they haven't put an addition on it, and yet they're still getting an increase in taxes. And I think we need to really take a good, serious look at that.
Okay. Was there one particular issue or a moment, Jim, when you said, that's it, I'm going to run, I can do better than that?
Yeah, it's I don't think it's really one.
Okay.
It's just there's lack of communications, to the current counselor.
So how would you kind of communicate with your constituents?
Good question.
Yeah.
Being in sales for 100 years, you have to be able to communicate. If a customer reaches out to you at 8 o'clock in the morning, you better, at some point in time that day, reach back out to them before the end of the day. Even if it's like, I'm in meetings all day, I'm in a conference, I just want to let you know I got your call, I will call you back.
Okay.
You need to be responsive. I have a plan to put in place, not just my email, the Jim Coffey 4 Ward 6 at Gmail, but also put my city council phone number and email address down in the city.
Yes.
My own personal email address, which I also have, Jim Coffey 01 at Gmail. It doesn't matter what medium you choose to reach me at, I want you to reach out to me.
Okay.
And that's the basis of communicating. And one last thing I think you'll get a kick out of this is I'm exploring putting in a Ward 6 podcast.
Oh, interesting.
So I ran this by a couple of people I know, and I said, so if you are, you're working, you're traveling, you don't necessarily have time to come to a coffee talk in your neighborhood.
Very good.
Right? So what would be, a means of communicating other than email, and how about a podcast? If you could take a few minutes, either in the morning or in the evening, and go on and listen to the podcast and see other people making comments about things that concern them, would that be of interest? You go, oh, I think podcasts would be the best. So getting feedback before I do something,
Okay.
I think is also part of the communicating, is asking and then getting feedback.
Okay.
I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, you did very much so, actually. But is in-person still part of the plan? In-person
Oh,
meetings?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned coffee talks.
Yes.
I don't like the town hall meeting. I don't think that
really?
the name really is, it's been kind of watered down and abused, I think, to some degree. So a very good friend of mine down the street said, well, what are you going to do for town hall? And I said, I'm not going to do town hall.
What would
She
you
goes,
do
what do you
in
mean?
place? Yeah.
I said, no, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to call them town hall. She goes, how about coffee talks?
Okay.
So now that's taken off.
Okay.
And I hope and I plan to be able to do it in each precinct. Not just say, okay, come to this location, leave your precinct, whether it be leave Squantum and Marina Bay and come over here to North Quincy,
Right.
or vice versa.
Oh,
I
all
want to
right.
try to literally, as often as I can, right now probably start out on every 6 months, and then if I can back it off to every 3 months and make it a 3-month in each one of the 5 precincts. I think that will get a lot more draw. There'll be more neighbors that want to come out because they don't have to get in the car and drive to the other side of the ward. So
Okay.
that's what I want to do.
You mentioned transparency. So where do you think the improvements can be made when it comes to city government and transparency?
So I will be seen everywhere in the city. Maybe holding babies, whatever, but I will be seen. You'll see me on QATV. You'll see me out in the ward, walking around talking to people. Attending the various civic community events that are happening. Not hiding from the people, but actually out there so they can see me. Someone had said to me when I asked, do you know who your counselor is today? And they said, no, I don't. And I said, and that's a shame. But when Jim Coffey becomes your city councilor, you'll know who I am. I will send out periodic newsletters. I will send out, like I said, information about having a coffee talk in your precinct. And I will be visible, which I think is what's missing today, is visibility in making sure that what I say is what I do, because that's important. People have to respect you for what you are, not for what you say.
Okay. Do you think that the city government is transparent enough for the citizens to know what's going on?
I think in some degree, yes, they are. I think the city tries to do a good job of providing information about who to contact for trash pickup and all sorts of other services in the city. I think sometimes what's lacking is the important issues that are facing the city tend to be kind of like held back from being addressed in the media, QATV and so forth. And when they are, sometimes they're only given little pieces and not all the details of that particular plan. And we can get into some of those issues later, but I think transparency on behalf of the city, I think, can get better. It always can get better.
Okay. And your third tenet of your campaign?
Accountability.
Yes.
You send me down to represent the Ward 6 community. I need to be accountable. And one of the things that I've learned over the years in business is that before you make a critical decision, be thinking about how that impacts, in my previous world, the customer. In this case, how is it going to affect my decisions to the ward residents? Is it going to be an overwhelming shock to them, a negative shock, or is it going to be something that they're going to be welcoming with open arms? And not everything I do down at City Council is going to be accepted as being, the right move. But as I get along into the position, I'm going to learn what positions I should take on what things that matter to my Ward 6. And that's called accountability. You need to be held to the standard of what the people that send you down there expect of you, which is do the job, and not just simply vote on things for the sake of voting on them. You need to, I'm going to look at motions and ordinances and other projects that come down onto the council floor. I'm going to look at them very carefully and with thoughtfulness as to how it's going to affect the people that I represent, because I'm representing them and they don't necessarily have a voice, but I will bring their voice to City Council.
Okay. We can't talk about Ward 6 and not talk about the Long Island Bridge issue, Jim, and whether or not you feel the city should continue to fight the city of Boston about rebuilding that bridge.
That's it's an interesting conversation, because the bridge, the Moon Island, the bridge, and Long Island are all part of Boston. Well, there is no bridge now, but it's been reported that the city of Boston has allocated so much funding for a bridge. I think by the time they put a barge out there to start reconstructing it, it's going to double in the cost. We have some limit in ability to fight them, and a lot of it is in court, which costs the city and the taxpayers a lot of money. On the other hand, I, for one, do not want trucks rolling up and down the streets of Quincy with the probably contagious, or I should say contagious, but dangerous chemicals and all sorts of things from the ground that are out there for years. Remember, that used to be a military installation. God knows what's down in that ground. And when they start to dig it up and they start to haul it away, I don't want that, stuff coming through the city of Quincy, let alone what those trucks and the traffic's going to do to the neighborhoods that it travels through. So that is something that is really important that we should fight for, but we should really understand at what cost are we going to fight that for, versus what mediation can we put on those trucks and the city of Boston coming in. Things like you can't come in into the city, anything, until after, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you have to be out of the city by, say, 2 or 3.
Okay.
Some constraints on them. And then, have some sort of ability to find the contractors when they're driving down the road and they drop something on the road and they continue going.
Okay.
It's still developing. I'm against that bridge 1,000%. I really think if the Boston wants to do anything about that island, go ahead. knock yourself out. But do a barge, get everything off on the barge, build a marina, and let the developers come in and develop these multi-million-dollar condos and hotel and casino, but leave Quincy out of it.
Okay. Want to talk about some of the citywide issues that have come up in the past year? Two that come to the fore, I'm sure you've heard before. One, the salary issue for the mayor, city councilors, and two, the statues for the public safety complex. Yeah.
So I'll take the first one.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to really any elected official getting a raise. I think what I was disturbed by was the way that the raises went about. It seemed to me, and I attended those city council meetings, so I seen it, I heard it, and one of the things that kind of disturbed me was the way they went about pushing in the raises, one for the mayor's raise and two for the city councilors. I'm not opposed to them both getting raises, but I think the way they went about it kind of told you that it's not just a raise, it's a significant raise. And I think that that's what is really, I think, annoyed a lot of the residents in the city of Quincy, including myself. So I think that, and I don't know legally if there's any way to stop it or reverse it. There is a petition going around where they're trying to gather 6,000 signatures to get it on the ballot. I'm not convinced that that's something that can then also overturn the decision made by the city council. The second thing you mentioned was the statues.
Right.
I go to St. Anne's Mass mostly every Sunday at 9 o'clock. I had to say that because if I said every Sunday, there's people out there that would say, Jim, you don't go every Sunday.
Sure.
And so I'm religious. Maybe not to the point where the mayor is. He's extremely religious, and I don't fault him for that. Matter of fact, I look up to him as a result of his religion. And his family were the same way. I think that taking religious statues and placing them on the grounds of public property, especially the public safety building that's being built, and the way that that went about as well, I think, again, causes question and concerns. If there were a picture of a policeman and his dog, a firefighter and the fire dog, and then maybe a public servant, statues in front, I don't think the city of Quincy residents would have an issue or problem. But once you bring in that religious part of it, I think that really kind of annoys some of the people that don't necessarily see the meaning that the mayor had by putting those statues. They have a meaning for them, but the meaning is lost when they're looking at a religious statue. And so that's my concern on that.
Okay. Right now, the biggest project probably in Ward 6 is the new Squantum School, right? Is that
yes,
a good thing?
finally.
You do? Yeah, okay.
It's got 6 or 8 years it's been in talks and making, and I was over there just the other day talking to residents and seeing what they're doing and how they're coming about, and the classroom facilities in the back.
Yes,
are
the
being,
modular.
Yeah, the modulars are being, and it's interesting. They're not like your modular home, which is 20 feet wide by 100 feet long.
Yeah.
I mean, they're big, huge. Almost like what they were at the small building at North Quincy High School before the field was built. So I think that should and hopefully suffice. It'll have plenty of air conditioning and heating. The students that go there for the year, hopefully not longer than that. But I think the Squantum Elementary School has needed to be replaced for years. And thankfully, we were able to get, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 65% funding from the state and the federal government. So another kudos to the city for doing that. They've done the same thing for Central Middle School, for Quincy High School, for North Quincy High School renovation. So, and also over in West Quincy. So there are a lot of good things that the city does. We just need to continue to do more of those good things that are going to help and also serve the residents of the city.
Yeah.
And I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that because I care, probably to a fault, and I care more about doing the right job. And I'm going to be working harder than anyone on that council for my constituents in Ward 6.
Do you think the city is headed in the right direction when it comes to developments? These.
Yes, I think the city is the size. I think we're over 100,000 residents. I think that we've had an older downtown the city that was just not developed, and it just didn't attract people. From my understanding, develop good development projects, good commercial space, good residential space, and then maybe even bring in the retail to mix into that. I think you've seen it in other cities and towns in the Commonwealth. It helps rejuvenate. It helps bring people out, not only from within the city, but people from outside the city want to come in, maybe do some shopping, maybe have some dinner, and maybe even move into the city. We have a great transit system. Well, we have a great access to a great transit system. We need to make sure that that transit system continues to be improved on and runs smoothly. In my understanding, there's no reason why you can't have, like the Red Line service when it first came in a few years back.
40 plus years now, 50 years.
You could almost know that if it's 9:15, that train is coming into the station and you're going to miss it if you're not on the platform. Today, I'm not so sure you will even see the 9:15 until 9:30. So that needs to change. And also the buses too. Buses take an awful lot of people in this city that are not within that half mile or mile from that station and get them either to the station or get them where they're going. And I think that the public transportation system in the city needs to continue to be improved on.
Have you thought about like what committees you'd like to serve on, Jim, if you are elected to the council?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. One is and I'm not sure if it will be, if the committee members will be decided on, but Granite Links, that's another issue that is dear to my heart. There is a committee that was recently formed back, I believe, in 2023 by the City Council. They voted on it unanimously. And that the members of that committee will be appointed by the mayor. And I understand there'll be a city council at large, there'll be the Ward 4 councilor, and then there'll be members of the public that will be sitting on it. And then it's still undetermined what that committee's responsibility is going to be.
Okay.
But that's one that I'd like to be on.
Okay.
I'd like to also be on any kind of audit or oversight committee on the city to look into what is the best interest of the city and its residents. Because I think we need a little bit more oversight on some of the programs and some of the projects we have going on. But to get back to that building and development, I think it's critical. There are a lot of state and federal programs that help developers do just that. We just need to be very careful not to be giving away the store in terms of taxes. There was a program that was offered, a TIF program offered to Granite Telecom, and I don't know why we even offered it. They're not going anywhere. And the owner of Granite, had bought One Heritage Drive and wanted to completely redo the whole building. Well, he bought the building. Why doesn't he just pay to have it redone? He talks about being so rich that he's a millionaire. So why are we giving him a program for 10 years? It's actually longer now. I think it's 16 years, where his commercial tax rate will not go up. It stays flat. So we're losing tax revenue as a result of that, and I don't think we really needed that.
Okay. All right. Going forward to the preliminary, what's your strategy, Jim, campaigning?
My strategy is, I just got my website is launched, Jim Coffey, number 4, Ward, number 6.com, is to continue to do the same thing, this grassroots approach of knocking on doors, talking to people, leaving information behind for them to then follow up with me, which is what I'm finding out now a lot of people are doing. And just continue to do that. Get out in the ward and talk to people. Signs don't vote. I'll put signs up, but I'm not putting signs up just simply to attract the eyes of people driving or walking the street. They're going to see my sign up and say, I talked to him. Yeah, he's got some good thoughts. He's got some good ideas. I'm voting for him. So it's continue to knock. Every night I'm out in the different precincts. And I'll continue to do that all day on Saturday and Sundays. It's a little hot out there, but you got to do what you got to do to get to the people. And the people of Ward 6, I think, are amazing. I've talked to so many of them in different precincts, and they're amazing. And they've got good ideas if we just ask and listen.
All right. Great to talk to you. Appreciate your time. Thanks for
Joe,
coming by.
thank you for inviting me in. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's our pleasure. And thank you for watching us here at AM Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano, and we'll see you next time.